All right. What up, homies? It's the Tominator, and today I wanted to point out a rather peculiar phenomenon that has been going on at the Mr. Olympia contest for decades now. And that is these mysterious cycles that seem to repeat themselves every 10 years. First and foremost, let's talk about what I'm going to dub the anniversary of the upset. So let's face it, Sean Roden becoming just the 14th Mr. Olympia in history this year was a major upset. Because whether you believe he deserved it or not, the fact remains that nobody in their right mind would have predicted him winning before the show began. Many people, myself included, had kind of written him off based on his poor performance in 2017, not to mention his old age. The dude is 43 for crying out loud, making him the oldest Mr. Olympia in history, surpassing 1982's Chris Dickerson by a few months. These factors, coupled with his health concerns from earlier in the year, which forced him to withdraw from the Arnold Classic, made it highly unlikely that he'd be able to bring arguably his best physique to date and dethrone the 7-time defending champ Phil Heath. So yes, it was an upset. But go back 10 years ago and you'll find a similar scenario playing out between Dexter Jackson and Jay Cutler in 2008. I mentioned this as well in my last video, but I don't think too many people were expecting the much smaller third-place finisher from the previous year to just walk away with the crown this time, especially given the controversial outcome in 2007. Without going into detail, suffice it to say, it seemed that the powers that be in the IFBB were simply unwilling to allow Jay to be defeated no matter what. So when Dexter came in there and sealed the deal, yes, you can bet your ass that that was an upset. And let's go back even further to 1998. This was the first time since '92 that the reigning Mr. Olympia wouldn't be competing, as Dorian Yates had formally retired the previous year. With the throne lying vacant, many fans and experts alike deemed Flex Wheeler as the heir apparent. Either him or Nasser El Somebody or perhaps Kevin Levrone seemed like safe bets at the time. So when Ronnie Coleman took the world by storm and jumped from 9th place to 1st, it was a huge upset. While he had shown dramatic improvement over the previous year with an impressive victory at the 1997 Russian Grand Prix, it was still a shock to see Big Ron summarily overthrow all these more established names on the biggest stage of them all. So that is 3 consecutive 10-year anniversaries of upsets at the Olympia. And if you think that's interesting, oh, we're just getting started. If the Dash 8s were the upset years, then the Dash 7s were the robberies. One could certainly argue that 1997 and 2007 were bona fide screw jobs, and I actually would. Dorian Yates in '97 was an injury-riddled mess with a blocky, bloated waistline and virtually no arms after having torn his left bicep in '94, and then the tricep of the same arm just 6 weeks before the show. While he was still dominating from the rear, he looked downright terrible in certain poses like the front double biceps, and didn't even have his usual granite-hard conditioning. So this was easily one of the most flawed Mr. Olympias of all time, and I believe that not only Nasser, but also Levrone and Sean Ray all deserve to place ahead of him that year. Fast forward to 2007, and once again we see another dubious decision unfolding with an off Jay Cutler somehow edging out a chiseled Victor Martinez. While Jay still had the size advantage, he was holding tons of water and had soft wrinkled glutes and lower back. He was clearly way off, while Victor Martinez was in the best shape of his life, and was the clear victor that night, no pun intended, in the eyes of most of the spectators. Even other bodybuilders like Ronnie Coleman and Flex Wheeler have gone on record stating that Victor was the rightful winner that year. And completing the cycle, we need only look back 1 year ago to 2017, in which Phil came in with a very distended and unsightly midsection, yet still managed to beat a spot-on William Bonac and probably the best version of Big Ramy we've seen to date. Now, this one I wouldn't call a true robbery, as other than the stomach, Heath looked great and was ripped from head to toe. It certainly wasn't as bad as '07 or '97, but many fans remain convinced that Phil was gifted this one. Okay, so another similar trend I've noticed is that in '94, 2004, and 2014, all 3 of these years, the reigning champion came in rather bloated, yet still retained his title. Dorian, while basically normal looking through the midsection by today's standards, was very blocky for the mid-90s, a point which runner-up Sean Ray loves to remind us of even to this very day. In 2004, Ronnie came in at his all-time biggest, but unfortunately his gut grew along with him, as we can see him here looking about 6 months pregnant. And Phil once again was off in 2014. This was the first time he'd messed up, and unfortunately, as we just saw, it wouldn't be the last. Okay, we're almost done, but I figured it would be nice to end on a high note, so here's one more for you. And this was the anniversary of the blowouts. In 1993, 2003, and 2013, each of these years, the champion absolutely ran away with it. These were probably their most dominant wins. In '93, as we all know, Dorian ushered in the mass monster era by coming in bigger than ever before and just blowing away the competition with his unprecedented size and conditioning. While I made an argument way back in my very first video that Flex Wheeler should have won this contest, if only for marketability reasons, there's no debating that Dorian beat him fair and square based on the official judging criteria. Likewise, in 2003, Ronnie came in like a giant freak of nature and took the mass game to a whole new level when he obliterated the field at 287 pounds of shredded muscle. The physique he brought that year, in my mind, remains unbeatable to this very day. I mean, he looked like a freaking alien from the back. And lastly, we got to mention Phil Heath in 2013. Well, many fans believe that 2011 was his best year. From a judging standpoint, it was clearly 2013, as they thought that he was so far ahead that they didn't even bother comparing him to the rest of the lineup during the callouts. They sent him back almost immediately, and it became an anticlimactic battle for second place. And while I do think that he was a little more aesthetic in 2011, there's no denying the improvements he made to his back and legs and overall muscle mass during that 2-year interval. So from a judging perspective, if you were to pit those two versions of himself up against one another, I'm pretty confident 2013 would come out on top. Alright, so that's all for this one, guys. Is this just a series of bizarre coincidences? Or is it some sort of Ouroboros-type Illuminati conspiracy shit going on with Joe Weider's Olympia? I don't know about you, but I find it all rather curious myself. But anyway, hope you found it interesting, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more. But until next time, I'm the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.